From season 31, episode 1, Joy of Painting. Started out with too dark of a blue, so this first attempt was abandoned. Ran out and bought some Seaside, which has kind of a greenish tint, but it worked. But this was a water fail. I'm not even going to try to blend the mountain in to make it look, say, like more reflective with some watery sheen to it. So I'm laying down clear first to start the process of the blend, hoping that I won't have to use so much paint and clear. Then I use the Seaside, the white, and then some of the blue, a little darker blue. And the whole goal is to try not to have to put too much product down, because then that's where I get in trouble with that orange peel effect when I lay down other colors on top. Doing the same exact thing with the water, but probably a little bit more blue than I wanted to do, the darker blue. I was just kind of thinking water, but to match the sky, I probably should have done more of lighter blue and then kept the darker blue at the bottom edge. But I feel like it worked out okay. And the blending seemed to work out with that soft brush, just laying down a lot of the clear, which helped a lot in distributing the paint and kind of blending everything together better. So I feel like I got this water reflection where I was happy with it. Waited that for that to dry, and then now I'm going to hit that far away mountain. That light lavender color is what I'm using there with a touch of blue, just to kind of give it a little color. And here's where I'm going to try to create kind of a mist just by using transparency. What I mean by that is I'm going to try to use lacquer thinner and also clear to try to get some kind of a transparency, because just to make kind of a mist. I don't know if this is going to work, but I was trying, and I ended up having to spray some more of the light lavender color just because it was starting to get too transparent. It was actually bleeding through too much. So I just went ahead and shot it with a little bit of the lavender, and then tried again with the soft brush and with some of the clear. And I felt like I just felt like I just should stop and get I got it to a point where it was kind of okay-ish, but I still need to work on this process. And I let that, well, I think I just hit it. No, this is the next day. Yeah, because the lighting changed. So yeah, this is the next day. So all that's dry completely. And now obviously I'm doing the mountain with straight purple with a little bit of dark blue in it, just to kind of make it a richer, darker version of the purple. And like I said, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to flip it, and I'm going to mirror the mountain above, but I'm not going to try to, like take a clear to it and blend it or try to make it, blurry or fuzzy or anything like that. I'm literally going to make a flip-flop version of the mountain range there. And here's where I'm doing the highlight with a dark gray and the purple mixed together to keep it that more subtle, muted, far away look like he kind of did on his painting and suggested. And this is where I'm just going to spin my table, flip-flopping back and forth until I get it to where the two are as close as I can get it. And this is where that Lazy Susan I attached to the bottom of this thing really has come in handy, because it enables me to just kind of flip it around, spin it, and put it in any direction I want. It's been really helpful. It's pretty heavy on there on the edge of the knife, and that's why I'm carrying it over with with my hand underneath it to catch any drips, because it would drip off. There's just so much on there because it was taking so much just to fill this amount of space, because it's a big mountain range, so there's a lot to I wanted to put on at once. Now I'm coming back with a just straight up dark blue to have a subtle kind of shadow portion of the texture. And I'm just cutting that in. I'll just do the exact same thing with the reflection on the water version of it too. Just try to match them as close as I can. Starting to get more and more where I'm wanting it to be. Now I'm adding some straight purple just as another additional texture and highlight. Then I thought I'd just spray this purple right down the middle, thinking that it might create kind of a mist effect. And this was one of those things where I don't think it helped or hurt it. It was just kind of like, okay, I did it. I'm going to try and cover it up with a lot of the tree line. And this is just a lot of blues. I kind of made a muted blue with dark gray and blue and kind of mixed colors together. He kind of did it with on that painting too. Kind of stayed in the blue theme with this initial tree line. And then I'll go ahead and use the dark brown for the terrain and kind of a beige color for the highlights of the terrain. Now I'm introducing actually another blue tree line effect and probably added a little bit of green just to begin the green process, because on top of the terrain I'm going to also add some green bushes. I'll try to mute it with gray and other muted colors, like I have this sage green, kind of make it all kind of stay way in the background by creating a muted effect. Here's the terrain with some dark brown. And I'm going to grab some beige. It's almost like a tan color. Got a little bit too light, so I came back with some lacquer thinner on my brush and just to kind of soften it a little bit, kind of make it a little darker. And the same thing with the water line, the white, straight out of the can white. And then I came back with putting my brush in some lacquer thinner and then just going over the top of that to kind of make it a little bit more transparent. Just that was my wife that just walked by doing her thing. Now I'm adding that green layer of bush over the top of the terrain to kind of fill that in, cover it, kind of contour it a little bit more, add another layer of depth, and then I'll go ahead and highlight that. Okay, now it's time to block in that terrain on the right side. This is just some dark brown with some black added. I want this to be a very dark, rich color to set off a contrast for everything that's going to be built on top of that, because there's going to be a lot of stuff on top of that terrain. And this is dark green with a little black added for the tree line, the distant tree line, kind of between the mountain range and the foreground terrain. Just a fan brush, making trees sticking up. And then I'm going to imitate this or reflect this into the water below. And I was thinking at this point in my mind, I wonder if I should try to make it look reflective with, you know, that shimmery look where I take the soft brush and sweep it across it. And there was some doubt in my mind that that was going to be okay. So I tried it a little bit with the fan brush. I think I just kind of was messing with it a little bit because I didn't want to wreck this painting. I'm so far into it now. I didn't want to just completely mess it up and have to start completely over again. So I was very kind of baby steps. And I was just here, I'm just kind of using some clear to see if it's going to blur and blend. And here I'm taking the soft brush and I'm just kind of messing with it. And I'd say, oh, no, let me try it one more time. No, yeah, it ain't going to happen. So, so I got to the point where I finally abandoned that and I completely covered all that, just made those trees a little lower, covered all that I did. And I said, I'm just going to stay with just complete duplicated reflection. I did it with the mountains and I'm doing it with those trees as well. And now I'm highlighting those trees. So everything that I do above, I'm going to do below in the water. Just stay with that. Now I'm adding the highlights to the terrain, which is kind of that espresso brown. It's still that dark brown, and then some beige for the highlights. Kind of knock that down with the knife, make it look a little bit more skippy. That's a neat effect. I really like that. So it looks really cool. Now I'm kind of highlighting the things that some more bushes above and below and going back and forth. We're going to get closer to this area in just a minute. You see my reference photos. What I did was I took screenshots of Bob's different phases just so I can kind of stay on track. Also, there were close-ups so I can get a little bit more detail. So that's why I printed those out and stuck them on around the painting I'm working on, just to kind of give me a little bit more of a closer detailed reference of what he did. And I, got close, but not super close. And this is where I'm twisting back and forth for the first time, the fan brush, kind of twirling it and twisting it, trying to get into a different kind of texture for the bushes. And that was kind of cool. It's going to take a little bit more practice, but I think it was a different look. So I think anything different is always better or cool or an addition. Otherwise, everything just looks the same. So now here's where I'm adding the shadow portion of a couple of smaller foreground trees. And I'll highlight those and start bringing those to life. Adding the trunks with some dark brown and black mixed. Everything's pretty dark in this hole, much darker than I'm usually working in, or I've have in the few paintings I've done in the past. I think probably because there's so many layers. There's so many layers of depth in this specific portion of the painting. And I wanted to add it like he did. He added kind of more different color variations in these trees. So there's a little bit more variety. And I like to test the colors off to the side just before I put it on the painting so I don't put too much paint on. I want to keep those shadows prominent or there so they can be seen and not just start layering a bunch of paint on. Oh, that bush kind of just appeared. Now I'm going to do that big foreground tree. That's just some dark green. And a fan brush, same fan brush. I have two bigger fan brushes, but I can't seem to really find a reason to use them. It's just the format I'm using is just too small for something so huge. They're like, I think it's 1.5 inches and 2 inch, and they're just like enormous. Maybe someday I'll use them for some reason, some giant tree in the foreground. Again, just layers, layers, layers. Dark to light. Now it's time for the stones, those boulders. And I wasn't going to do like he did where he put the two colors on one brush. I went ahead and did a light gray and then a dark gray and tried to use those. And this is where a lot of experimenting is going to happen. So I figured I'd put the boulders down first, locate them, try to figure out what I was going to do with the highlights and lowlights, and then the water reflection. I knew there had to be a water reflection. I just wasn't sure how that was going to happen yet. So this is a straight out of the can light gray and straight out of the can dark gray. So I got that started. Now I'm going to try and figure out what do I do with the reflection. So I thought I'd take some dark gray and see if I can do like a kind of like a, I don't know, transparency, back to that kind of concept with maybe spraying a little bit of clear and then also dipping my brush in lacquer thinner, but it was not working. All it was doing was continuing to just blend the color, and it just, I couldn't seem to get a reflection that made sense. I just kept going back and forth with between clear and light gray and lacquer thinner, trying that. That wasn't working. Yep, nope, David, that's not going to work. Nope, that's not going to work. Nope, it's not working there, buddy. So what I finally decided to do was introduce black, straight black, and then see if I can do a transparency of black. And with a little bit of doing, I finally got to a place where I said, I think this might work. And it was basically using black with lacquer thinner. And that was enabling me to create kind of a transparency of the black into the water, which was, I felt like, well, I'm going to need to work on this some more in the future. But I might be on the right track. So I just did the same thing with these little boulders in the middle of the lake. Did the light, dark gray, and then added the black, and then added the black with that was watered down with lacquer thinner to try to create another reflection. There it is right there. And that, the better would be to be able to pull down like he does with the brush and create like a blurred image of everything above it. But I just can't. I'm just going to have to work on that some more. I'm going to have to experiment some more. This is starting to look more cartoony to me, almost like an illustration rather than a painting. But so now I'm going to add some white highlight to the boulders, kind of give them kind of a glistening effect, and then a water line. Hoping all this stuff would help, but just experimenting, just having fun experimenting. So now I'm going to just put a big old fern right on top of all these boulders. That fan brush is great for making ferns. It's almost perfect shape for it. So first is the dark green, obviously, and then just build off from there. This one I've kind of realized I could create kind of this middle of the bush look. So I branched everything off out from the middle of this to make it look like that kind of fern look. Kind of creates kind of a neat depth and kind of like it has a center to it. Now I'm creating one more bush. Oh, that's some highlights. Then I'm going to create another bush, but first I'm going to do some, oh, more highlights. More highlights on the big tree. So this is that key lime green. that really makes things pop. I'm going to fuss with the water line some more. See if I can make it a little more watery looking. And then here I'm doing some more water, but then I'm going to come back and wash it all out with some lacquer thinner, just so it's not super bright and just looks like white lines. Yeah, I've got some more work to do on this kind of a reflection and rock, and where it's just completely mirrored like that. Because there's no movement in the water at all, just based on the mountain range. Now here I'm adding some twigs and sticks and branches and things. That's really helpful because it kind of adds another element of interest. And then finally I'm just going to add another bush foreground and try to make something that's a little bit more different than the rest of it. A lot of foliage in this little right edge of the painting. And then some more yellow, kind of give it another final splash of color. And that pretty much wraps it up for this painting. And here is Bob's. Oh no, I'm sorry, here's mine. And here's Bob's. And back to mine again. I hope you enjoyed this, and thank you so much for watching. Take care.